Now, anyone who's ever studied the history of psychedelic use, anywhere on any continent, whether it be in the Americas, in Europe, um, possibly in Asia, although I don't know too much about that. But if you, anything I've looked at basically, I see rituals and ritualistic behavior. That seems important. And it seems like it's an important part of psychedelic use. I apologize if there's noise. There's a helicopter or plane right overhead that you might have heard, maybe not. But so there's rituals involved in most psychedelic use. And we've pretty much lost all that in today's world. We've lost all of it basically. So, in today's modern world, now I'm not talking about the 60s and 50s, I have a lot to say on that as well. I'm talking about today. A lot of people have tried psychedelics without a ritualistic experience, and the same has occurred with me. I did not have a guide or a true ritual when I took psychedelics. But I see the importance of that the more I do it and the more experienced I get with psychedelics. The deeper, more intense the trips I have, even though I'm okay and I particularly didn't need or don't need for that particular trip a guide, coming after I come back and thinking about introducing somebody to psychedelics, I definitely feel that a ritual is needed for them, just from a risk management and risk mitigation standpoint. So I'm deeply into risk management, into risk control, into risk identification, into risk mitigation, both for my own portfolio and just for the world in general. I think those are key things. That's kind of my niche, and that's kind of what I know. And so I apply that naturally to a lot of things. And it's useful to apply that to psychedelics because there are a ton of risks. There are a ton of risks, and you could completely fuck up your whole life. You could fuck up the life of the person you love the most, the person you love dearly, whose mind you're trying to enhance and improve and open up. You could completely destroy that person if you give them an incorrect psychedelic dose, if you give it to them in an incorrect way, in an incorrect set, in an incorrect setting. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving financial advice. This is for entertainment and a little bit of education, but mostly for entertainment purposes. Never listen to a random guy online about medical advice and something so serious as taking psychedelics. That's crazy talk. But I think that rituals need to be brought back. And we're never going to bring back the rituals of old. We're just never going to bring them back. Because those rituals, as beautiful as they may seem, or as pointless as they may seem to others, to some they seem beautiful. Some of them seem beautiful to me from observing them, watching videos of them. But I see that that doesn't make sense to me now. And I want to create other rituals. Say I give somebody a psychedelic drug. I want to create rituals for them. And having had all these experiences, I realized the ritual doesn't matter that much. It just doesn't matter that much. It, like, to a particular culture, for a particular drug, you're gonna see a lot of opinions, and you're gonna see a lot of like hard opinions. You may see someone saying, "Oh no, the ritual does matter. This drug has to be taken in this certain way." Well, for the ones I've taken, mainly, you don't really, doesn't seem like you need that, but it also doesn't seem, it seems like you don't need a ritual. It seems like a ritual would be incredibly useful and incredibly beneficial even though you don't need it. And it seems like you could have any kind of ritual. And one ritual for one person may be great, but that same ritual for somebody else may be miserable. Just maybe miserable. But the ritualistic approach is useful because it sets things up in the right direction, and it keeps the evilness and the darkness that can be accessed or that can come to you when you take some of these drugs. It tries to keep it away. So a ritual is just something where that you do that's maybe tied into some superstition type belief of the ego in this world that maybe you will, that you'll use. So say, just for example, say you're a Christian and that's who you are, that's who you've been, that's the society you've grown up, and your mind's expanded a little bit, to to the point where you see Christianity in a different light, in a much deeper light. That's how it is for me. And I'm gonna probably do some videos on Christianity and psychedelic use. But my psychedelic use has made Christianity colored, where before, unfortunately, it was like a black and white drawing on a piece of paper. All this color is now on my Christian belief. It completely redid my belief, psychedelics. It took me from level 1 to a level 100 in my own mind of what I understand of Christianity and of God and of the eternal and of the Bible and of the history of Christianity. It completely opened up my mind. And that's not what this particular episode is about, so that's not where we're going to go here. But having had that experience, I see how in introducing other Christians, now I wouldn't do this to a Muslim, right? So if a Muslim came to me, if a Muslim friend or acquaintance wants to try out one of these drugs, and I'm helping them do that, I'm not gonna help them do a ritual that's a Christian-based ritual, right? No. But for a Christian, I can see there could be certain things that I just randomly thought of incorporating into the ritual, like holy water, buying holy water. And if you're inhaling something from a long pipe, and maybe you could do it on purpose, maybe you can buy a long pipe to inhale on purpose. So you buy this long, beautiful pipe. For tobacco pipes, they're typically called church warden pipes. Nothing to do with Christianity in that sense. They're just called church wardens. Although maybe they were used by a church warden in the past, but they're called church warden pipes. And there's different variations of them. So you also have other thin pipes that look like those, but they're not that type of pipe specifically. But any long, beautiful pipe, let's say, and you take holy water and you rub it on the pipe, and of course you could rub the holy water on the actual length of the pipe on the outside, and you could say that that holy water is going to help God protect you. It's going to help God make sure the smoke that comes in through that pipe and goes into your lungs, that God gets a chance to interact with that, to do something with that smoke. So when it gets into you, God willing, it could have the effects you wish for them to have. Or even if you have effects that you didn't wish, that they be positive, that they be good, that they come from a loving, good place, not something to destroy and hurt you, which is possible. Now, to somebody that hasn't tried psychedelics, that may sound foolish. But for somebody that has, I don't think that sounds foolish at all. Rituals are important, and especially for uninitiated people, for people that are very new to this, for people that haven't had a lot of experience with any mind-altering substance, and for people who hadn't had a lot of experience with meditation or the concept of ego death, who aren't aware, even in the slightest, even to the slightest degree, that who they think they are is kind of a illusion. If you're so tied into your ego, you're more prone to negative and anxious experiences. And having a ritual helps. And something as simple as rubbing holy water on a pipe will help if you're a Christian and if you believe it. And I believe it, and it's true. It's true, truly for me and for the world, in my opinion. It's hard to explain, but if you believe it, you believe it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is the truth. And so if you have a Christian who's about to take a psychedelic substance, it is very useful to interlace Christian imagery, Christian themes into that experience, in my opinion. I think that will be a very useful thing to do. And it'll bring them closer to God. It'll just bring them closer to God too. So rituals are important. Now, say you're a Muslim, you could have a Muslim-based ritual. Say you're whatever you are, you can have that type of ritual. Say you're a hardcore atheist. Now, say you're a hardcore atheist, like a militant atheist, like Richard Dawkins, let's say. In that case, you might find it difficult to do a great ritual that's based in anything mystical, because you're not a mystical person in any way. But after you do the psychedelics one time, you'll probably abandon a lot of your atheism, and you will no longer be such a militant atheist. because depends on what dose you do. But if you do sufficient dose, you'll see that that kind of line of thinking is very unfounded and very diluted, and that there's far more in this world than you could ever have imagined. There's meaning and depth that rivals anything you ever experienced or could ever imagine experiencing in normal quote unquote waking consciousness. And there's quite a bit more than meets the eye when you're just normally awake, like we are, you know, during the typical day. And so we need to bring back rituals, but we need to do it in a smart way, in a 21st century way, and it needs to be done by intelligent people and only by people who have had psychedelic experiences. No one should be creating rituals if you haven't had a psychedelic experience. So if you're creating a ritual for psychedelic use and you haven't had a psychedelic experience, you have no business doing that. You just need to go away and take some psychedelics. Because without having been there, without having experienced the other realms, the other ways of understanding this world, you're not just not going to be capable of designing a ritual that's good. And effectively, that's what it is. It's design. It's ritual design. And what I'm worried about by saying this, I truly am concerned, is that people will take me the wrong way and they'll think I'm somehow talking down to the rituals that do exist. And I'm not doing that at all. So if I know that there's a ritual in some town somewhere, some Mexican town, some tribal Mexican village somewhere, let's say, where they're doing, let's say, salvia, and they're doing a salvia ritual, that's perfectly reasonable. I love that. I'm learning from them. All I'm saying is that that ritual may not apply here. The ritual that applies here, it still has to be tied to the monkey in some way, especially when they're doing it for the first time. It needs to be tied in to the neural maps, the neural frameworks that are already in place for that monkey, to calm them down in a sense, to 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 kind of grasp their mind and bring it to a good place. Or if I was going to say it more literally and more effectively, to keep the demons at bay, to keep the darkness and evil at bay when you take these drugs. So that's the goal of the rituals, to keep the darkness and the evil at bay. And you need that. You sometimes need that, especially for people who you know are going to be more prone to experiencing the darkness and the evil and all the bad stuff that can happen on a trip. Because it's not all good, right? It's not all beautiful. And as psychedelics get more popular, more and more people are going to do it that aren't the typical people that would be predisposed to doing psychedelics. So imagine we're in 2035 and they do a survey and a bunch of people in the US, a huge percentage of people have tried psychedelics. Well, that's very different from 2005, where a very narrow set of people tried psychedelics, and that narrow set were the people that were most inclined, most open, most prone to exploring things, most the people that are more likely to do psychedelics are more likely to be more mystical. They're more likely to love nature. They're more likely to be more open and have an affect that'll promote a positive psychedelic experience. They're also more likely to meditate. They're more likely to have read a lot, to be able to put things into context whenever things start maybe deviating from an ideal path as they're coming up. So there's a lot of factors here, but rituals help. Rituals help. They're needed again. We need to bring them back.